In this video, I want to explain to you a particular scenario that some of us may be fortunate to be in or fortunate to consider, which would be an instance where you have a high-paying job and you want to walk away from it, right? In this case, we have someone who I'll go through an example of an instance where someone was in a situation where they're working in the finance industry, earning $150,000 or more in working on the trading floor or a major investment bank, and they decided to walk away from it. So we're going to think about what are the considerations you should make in the careers you pick, in the career decisions you make, and whether it aligns with your life purpose and how to navigate that. So let's listen to this story of this guy considering quitting his job.
In 2019, I was offered a six-figure job to start my professional career working for one of the biggest banks in Canada. At just 20 years old, I had to make the most defining choice of my life. Do I accept this job, knowing full well how much I hate it, but how much people will also respect and admire me for it? Or do I say no? And do I disappoint my boss, my friends, and my family? After a lot of thought, I said no. And it was the greatest decision of my life. Here are the
So what we need to focus on first is some of the points he mentioned where he was considering whether he should stay in the job or quit it. And a lot of people, when they consider which job they're working, they're really conscious of social status. Each job comes with a social status. And I really think you should think carefully what jobs you're picking and not going for necessarily one with high social status, right? Because if you're just picking a job based on the social status, you might not enjoy it. I didn't want to become a doctor, for example. I wanted to go into finance because that was my particular interest. So I recommend when you're picking your career, you do think clearly about what is your interest, not what would impress your parents or co-workers or your friend group, right? And in terms of why you should say no and why it would make a rational decision, in this case, for this guy to quit his $150,000 US dollar, right? Career would be, the upward mobility is not necessarily guaranteed, right? If you're picking one of these corporate jobs, there used to be a degree of security and stability. You'd be like, okay, well, maybe it's relatively high paying job compared to a lot of jobs. It's maybe not the most interesting job. It might be a bit boring, but I'll get the stability. I'll enjoy my weekends, spend time with my family or friends or in a relationship. I will maybe be able to save and invest a bit and then, kind of live a comfortable middle class life. But that's no longer guaranteed. The normal, boring, traditional path is not really guaranteed anymore. So it makes sense not to follow it. It makes it's actually a rational decision for this guy to quit his $150,000 US dollar job because there's no guarantee that it would work out in the end. He might as well pursue his dreams and then maybe go back to a corporate, boring office job if it doesn't work out, right? And things are not guaranteed because they are higher likely of layoffs. There's not really upward mobility in terms of you work a job like this and he's in Canada, for example. But if you're in Canada, in Toronto, in New York, London, you might be on a high-paying middle-class salary, but you can't even buy a house. Or if you buy a house, you'll still be in a lot of debt, and it might not be the safest area. So there's no real stability, so it makes sense to quit a $150,000 job, even though it might seem like it's not. So when people are in this position, which you see society currently in with the inflation rate and the other social dynamics I mentioned in my other videos, I think it is a perfectly rational decision to walk away from those high-paying jobs and take the risk to bet on yourself. As long as you make a calculated risk, maybe you've got some savings and investments to back you up in case it doesn't work out. So that's what I recommend everyone and my clients that I work with as part of my coaching service, which is here if you're interested. The link's in the description, is to really find out what works for them and try to pursue that now rather than do what a lot of people have done traditionally, is they'll put that off. They'll work the corporate career and maybe get more and more miserable, and then they'll have like a midlife crisis, or maybe later down the road they might think about doing something different. I recommend you kind of expedite that process, especially with everything accelerating in the West, not in the right direction, that you progress your life in exactly what would be your purpose rather than just being like, I'll just play it safe. Playing it safe doesn't really pay off and it's not going to work out. So let's move on to the next clip here.
Please always take a chance on yourself. What is a big mistake that you've made or a big regret that you have that has taught you a very valuable lesson in life?
For me, my biggest regret was I wanted to be an actor. That was my dream since I was in elementary school. I was in all the school plays, and I had a modicum of success when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I was sort of almost on the cusp of making it. I guess I got scared. I need to work. I need to support myself, obviously. I was the quintessential starving artist. I was sleeping on friends' couches. I was bartending. I was a server, whatever, doing what I had to do so I can go on auditions during the day. And I kind of gave up on that dream and got the typical corporate 9-to-5 job. And that's my biggest regret in my life, because that's all I've ever wanted to do was be an actor. And now I have some lame corporate job, and it's like, you can pay my rent and whatever, live, but what is the point at the end of the day?
So this is a good example of someone who's 50 years old, who did the traditional path, and he's giving the same advice I'm giving. I'm someone who's worked in the finance industry for over 10 years at Goldman's, Morgan Stanley, and the other names you can see here. And I'm saying it's not necessarily the worst thing possible. You can still earn a high income, and as I say, you make savings and investments for a relatively early retirement, depending on how you invest wisely, right? But we've got a clear example here of someone who wanted to become an actor, didn't really pursue it after getting a bit worried about their financial situation and went into a corporate job. Now, I'd recommend if you are pursuing your goals, you can have like you can have a side hustle in your main job, or you could maybe put your acting dreams or whatever, your side hustle, on hold while you work a corporate job for maybe 2 years, and then you have a clear hard deadline where you're going to quit after 2 years and then go back and use this money you've saved to pursue your goals, right? You don't want to regret things. I think you've only got like one life to live, of course, right? And what you should realize is that life isn't a zero-sum game, and your career isn't a zero-sum game, right? It's not like, okay, either you make 500,000 in a corporate job a year, or you become a multi-millionaire on your side business. It's not all or nothing, right? It's not like you're going to be in a dead-end corporate job or your side business is going to fail, right? It's not these extremes that we think. It's not a zero-sum game in the sense that it's all almost extreme success or extreme failure. Typically, lots of people end up in the middle, right? Some people who become freelancers, they might not become Alex Hormozi and have, like $100 million business, but they might make, decent income to live a life that they want to live. And what I wanted to say is, when you do have someone, I don't want to knock this guy we've got on the screen right now, but when you do have people who pursue their corporate jobs that they don't enjoy, they typically pick up other bad habits as coping mechanisms to deal with it, which would be maybe drinking too much alcohol, smoking cigarettes, just finding a way to cope with the misery of not being happy in their job. And you see this kind of in a lot of people who do office jobs. A lot of the time, they kind of got this slow, sluggish thing about them. They have this kind of passive aggressive deadpan humor, and it's a bit depressing. It's the way some of these people carry themselves. Even if they're on high paying jobs, you would think, oh wait, you're making 250k a year, why are you not like that happy in life? It's a bit of a dichotomy. So you got to really pursue your dreams, and always focus on what is your dream and not what is the corporation's dream. So even if you're pursuing a promotion, how does the promotion further your purpose in life? So you might be getting promoted not because you care about the promotion and a job title. You're not chasing the vice president promotion just for the sake of it, or the director promotion just for the sake of it. You're pursuing that because it'll give you higher income, so maybe you can invest in property and then live off that passive income. So you always got to think, what are your dreams, not necessarily what the corporation's dreams or goals. So we got a next clip here.
And so everybody's opinion around me all of a sudden seemed to have a lot more value. When you don't know who you are, it's very easy to become influenced by others and their opinions. I had never taken the time to properly think about what it is I wanted to be, what my purpose was, and things like that.
So this is very important, right? Because lots of people, as I say, they don't know who they are and what they want. And something I'd highly recommend you do is to spend some time alone to really think through what you want in life. And for me, it's like I go for long walks in nature. I spend time on my balcony, just sitting and thinking through life in the evenings or early mornings. This is very important, because otherwise you're bombarded not only with advertisements for you to become a consumer and just buy pointless things you don't want, but also to pursue goals that aren't really yours. For example, in London, lots of people will buy a small, overpriced three-bedroom house for like £500,000, right? So imagine spending 500 grand, $500,000 on a really small, tiny 3-bedroom house, and then trying to make something out of it, which would mean like you're either living there as a single person, or you're in a relationship. Maybe that relationship doesn't work out. Maybe you get married for the sake of it. Maybe it doesn't work out. You end up in a divorce. Could mess you up financially. Or you have kids just because you're told you should have kids, or you want to fit in with others, or you pursue a career that doesn't really work for you. You really need to think, what do you want? Not what would make your parents happy, what would make your co-workers happy or society happy, because society is kind kind of dysfunctional now. Playing that game doesn't make sense anymore. You should really think, okay, who are you? What makes you happy? And what brings you fulfillment in life? This is an interesting moment here.
Self-reflect.
He's going to go through where he is asking a co-worker why he decided to pursue this investment banking job. And in this case, the individual you see on your screen right now realized he didn't really have a reason for pursuing investment banking as a career beyond the fact that it pays well, whereas the co-worker he was speaking with had a deep meaning and a deep purpose for that high-paying job because they wanted to help their family who were not financially well off and from a poorer country, Algeria. So this is what is important for you to consider, like, what is your why? When you have a job, why do you want it? Is it just a stepping stone to the next step in your career and a promotion, or making a shift to another part of the industry? This is how you get through the day when you do have those days where it does feel like your work is pointless. Like, what is the end goal here? What is your why? And if you have a why, you can get through anyhow. Let's listen to his little story here.
I looked at him and I said, hey, why do you want this job? And he turns to me and he tells me, my mom and I immigrated from Algeria and she's been working 2 jobs to support us, and I want this job so I can make enough money so that my mom doesn't have to work that hard and that we can be comfortable. He said that, and I looked at him and I realized right then and there, like, that's a fantastic reason to want to do this. Even if he wasn't thrilled at the prospect of what the job entailed, he had a greater purpose and this job served that purpose. And he asked me the same question. He said, why do you want this job? And I looked at him and I didn't have an answer. I don't know why I would have wanted this job. I'm not sure. I couldn't answer that question. I took that conversation, I went home that night, and it was at that exact moment that I knew I was done. The lesson I learned here is that right then and there I figured out what I wanted in life.
So what we should take from here is, firstly, how did he end up in a position where he just like had this epiphany one moment in the office that he didn't really want to do the job and he's quitting his 150k job. The question is, how did he not realize that earlier? Because he was at university, he was making all these job applications, he got a job offer to work in finance. Did he not figure it out earlier? And the point is that in the video, he doesn't complain about the job, like, oh, the hours are super long, the co-workers are difficult. He doesn't talk about that. He just realizes he didn't have an interest in this. So this is what I mean about, you should really focus on what you want in life and why you want that. Don't just be aimlessly pursuing things because you're at university and everyone's applying for a banking job or a law job or accounting job. Think about what actually works for you. Let's move forward to these 3 important questions that you should consider when you are deciding, what path to take.
Completes the trifecta. So I learned who I was, I learned what I wanted, and the only thing left was to figure out how to get what I want.
So this is what I mean. This is why you need to spend a lot of time with self-reflection, so you understand why someone would quit a $150,000 job and why you might do the same, even if you think that's a high salary and you think, oh, that must be an easy life, right? You might have to work some boring office work, but it's a relatively, easy, a lot of money for not that much work. But lots of people are miserable in these jobs. I know people who are kind of dependent on antidepressants and different type of, coping mechanisms to get through things, as I say. But part of what I do when I do work with my clients, and I've spoken with many recent weeks, is that we need to think through those questions he just went through, like, who are you, what do you want, and how to get it? Because that's what you should be pursuing at the end of the day, right? And a lot of this does come down to mindset. It can't be just purely, I need to get a promotion, I need to move to this company. A lot of it has to come down to really doing a lot of deep digging into who you are and what you want. If you are interested, as I say, I worked at all of these companies. I have a lot of work experience within the finance industry for over a decade, working in investment banking and sales and trading, and I studied at LSE, and I provide career coaching services for people. So if you reach out to me, the link in description, we can talk it through. Many people would think the solution to life would be to get a high-paying corporate job, but as you can see, this individual who was quite early in their life, in their 20s, decided to quit that high-paying job. So it's not the answer for everyone. So thanks for listening, and there are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.